You open someone's profile today, maybe a former classmate, maybe someone you went to school with, or used to work with, or barely know at all. And for a moment, looking at their life through a small glowing rectangle, something shifted inside you. A quiet deflation, a subtle tightening, not quite envy, not quite sadness. Something more uncomfortable than either. Something that felt, if you are honest, like you had lost a competition you never agreed to enter. And the strangest part is that you knew, somewhere underneath it, that what you were looking at was not even real. A highlight reel, a curated performance, a selection of the best 12 seconds of someone else's year. You knew all of that, and it still worked. The comparison still landed, the feeling still arrived, and no amount of knowing better made it go away. This is not a modern problem. This is not something social media invented. The drive to compare yourself to others is one of the oldest, most deeply embedded systems in the human brain. And once you understand where it actually came from, the feeling does not disappear, but it changes. Because you stop fighting a flaw and start seeing a feature that has been running in the wrong environment for a very long time. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger published what he called social comparison theory. His central argument was simple and devastating. Human beings do not evaluate themselves in isolation. They evaluate themselves in relation to others. You do not know if you are fast until you see how fast other people run. You do not know if you are successful until you see what success looks like around you. You do not know if your life is good until you compare it to the lives within your visible range. Festinger called this the social comparison drive, and he argued it was not a weakness. It was a fundamental feature of human cognition. But Festinger was describing a mechanism. He was not explaining why the mechanism exists. For that, you have to go back much further than 1954. Your ancestor lived in a group of 30 or 40 people. That group was everything. And within that group, your position mattered enormously. Not as a matter of ego, as a matter of survival. Higher status individuals in small hunter-gatherer bands got better access to food, to mates, to protection, to resources. Lower status individuals got what was left. The difference between being near the top of a small social hierarchy and being near the bottom was not abstract. It was the difference between your children surviving and your children not surviving. So your brain developed an obsessive, automatic, never-sleeping system for monitoring your position relative to others. Where are you in the group? Are you moving up or sliding down? Who has more? Who has less? Is your share of the resources fair? Are you being respected? Are you falling behind? This system ran constantly, silently, in the background of everything you did. Because falling too far behind in the group hierarchy was not just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. And a brain that monitored status obsessively had better survival outcomes than one that did not. Psychologist and evolutionary researcher David Buss spent decades studying this system across cultures and continents. His research found that status anxiety, the persistent monitoring of one's social standing relative to others, appears in every human culture ever studied. It is not a Western phenomenon. It is not a social media phenomenon. It is a species-level phenomenon. The hardware runs in every human brain, regardless of geography, culture, or era. Because it was not built for any particular culture. It was built for survival. Here is what makes this astonishing. Your brain's comparison system was calibrated for a group of 30 to 40 people. It was designed to track roughly 40 social relationships simultaneously. That is the number researchers have found corresponds to the natural cognitive limit of close social tracking. What anthropologist Robin Dunbar identified as the inner circle of genuine social awareness. 40 people. You knew all of them. You could see all of them. You could accurately read where you stood relative to each one. Now consider what happens when you open a social media platform. You are not looking at 40 people. You are looking at thousands, millions. A global highlight reel of the most successful, most attractive, most adventurous, most accomplished versions of an almost infinite number of lives. And your ancient comparison system, which was built to monitor 40 people in a small band, is now trying to process all of it, using the same hardware, running the same algorithm. Except now the algorithm has no floor. In a group of 40 people, you were always near someone doing worse than you. You were always near someone struggling, someone failing, someone having a harder time. The comparison was balanced. The social mirror showed you the full range of human experience, but on a curated global platform, the struggling and failing and having a harder time is invisible. Everyone you see has already filtered out their worst days. What remains is a feed of relentless peak performance. And your 40-person brain, designed to find your position within a balanced group, is now comparing itself against an impossible ceiling with no floor. Researcher Ethan Cross at the University of Michigan has studied the psychological effects of social comparison extensively. His work found that passive social media consumption, scrolling without interacting, looking without connecting, is consistently associated with decreased well-being, increased feelings of inadequacy, and heightened social comparison distress. Not because the platform is uniquely evil, but because it feeds an ancient comparison system data that the system was never designed to process. Your brain is running a perfectly calibrated instrument in an environment that breaks every assumption the instrument was built on. And here is the layer underneath that. The comparisons that hurt the most are never random. Research consistently shows that social comparison pain is most intense when we compare ourselves to people who are similar to us in background, age, or circumstance, but appear to be ahead of us. Not celebrities, not billionaires, not people in completely different worlds. The former classmate, the old colleague, the person from your hometown who seems to have figured something out that you have not. These comparisons sting because your brain reads them as relevant data. In the ancestral environment, someone similar to you who was ahead of you in the hierarchy was direct evidence that your position was slipping, that the gap was closable, and therefore that you were failing to close it. The envy you feel looking at someone similar to you is not pettiness. It is your survival system telling you that a competitor within your reference group is pulling ahead, and that in the world your brain was built for, that mattered. But you are not in that world. You are in a world where the reference group is no longer 40 people you can see and know and accurately assess. It is everyone. And everyone, filtered through their best moments, is always ahead of you in something. The comparison system was built to motivate, to push you upward within a small, real, balanced group. In its original environment, the sting of falling behind was a signal to act, to compete, to improve, to reclaim your position. In your environment, that same sting arrives constantly, from every direction, with no accurate signal attached to it, and no achievable action that resolves it. The system fires, the feeling lands, and then fires again, and again. Not because you are losing, but because the system is searching for a 40-person world that no longer exists. The next time you feel that quiet deflation looking at someone else's life, notice what is actually happening. Your ancient status monitor has detected a signal. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is telling you something about your position in a group. But the group it thinks you are in is not the group you are actually in. The data it is processing is not real data. It is a performance fed into a system that cannot tell the difference between a genuine social threat and a photograph taken on the best day of someone's year. You are not losing. You are not behind. You are a 40-person brain in a world of 8 billion, running a comparison system that was built for a campfire and pointed at the sky. The feeling is real. The threat is not. And knowing the difference, truly knowing it, is the only recalibration that actually works.